Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
I'm husband.
And I'm wife.
Together, we're reading the Bible for the very first time.
We grew up without religion and wanted to know what all the fuss was about.
Well, what have we learned so far?
That God is a dick, and apparently some people believe in talking donkeys?
We're not trying to pass ourselves off as experts.
Nope, we're just reading the Bible for the first time and giving our first take reaction.
If you'd like to join us in this venture, you might consider starting at episode 1.
Otherwise, jump in wherever you like.
All right, let's go read the Bible.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Hey wife, did you know that Anchor is sponsoring our show?
Really? Don't we use Anchor to distribute our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts?
Yeah, and we are on just about every other platform available as well, thanks to them.
Why do we use Anchor as our podcasting service?
Well, they make editing and distributing our show a breeze.
What if one of our listeners wants to start their own podcast?
Then they should head over to anchor.fm or download the app to get started.
Awesome! You guys should go do that right now! Husband!
Wife!
Are you ready?
Am I ready for what?
Sacrilegious Book Club!
I don't think I'm ever not going to laugh at that.
It's so stupid.
It really is. All right, before we forget, what pages are we going over today?
Today we are going over Asimov's Guide to the Bible. We're in the book of Genesis, covering pages 100 to 117 and wrapping up book of Genesis.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what kind of shit are we getting into today?
Oh, so much. I mean,
so much, huh?
We're going to talk about Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
And things and whatnots.
And Jacob's sons. And it's mostly that stuff.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I mean, it's some pretty good shit, though.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and get on into this, huh?
Let's get on into this.
Hey, wife, do you like coffee in the morning?
I sure do, husband. Morning, noon, night. Which reminds me, I need to add that to our grocery list because we're running low.
Wait, before you do that, check out the website ungodlybrew.com where you can purchase a pound of your favorite flavor of coffee.
What if I want more than 1 pound?
Either order a larger amount or better yet, get 10% off by setting up a subscription for every 2 weeks or a month or whatever works for you.
Did you set up something special for our listeners?
You know I did. Exclusive for our listeners, get an additional 10% off subscriptions by entering the code SacrilegiousCoffee at checkout.
That's a hellishly good deal.
Ungodly Brew is hellishly good coffee.
Okay, couple notes before we jump right in.
Okay.
First of all, I just want to say that a lot of this is going to be recapping the famous stories that we're familiar with from that section of the Bible that we already covered.
I mean, I would expect that. Yeah.
Right.
So,
but more so than I have done in previous episodes of the Sacrilegious Book Club. So I just want to make sure that that's put out there that, yes, I know some of this is reiterating.
Yeah.
But there was so much geography, and he concentrated on that a lot as well. And I didn't include the parts that weren't really as interesting to me.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
So this is why you should get the book and read along.
Right, because there's more to it.
There's way more to it. I'm just telling you the parts that I found interesting.
Sure.
Or that I felt like sharing.
Yeah, yeah.
So just wanted to put that out there. That
Okay.
I'm definitely not a seasoned professional in summarizing this book.
But you know what I'm really enjoying about this so far?
What?
Is that of all the things that we're doing, this is holding us accountable for what we've said in our podcasts. Like, we have to go back and analyze, oh, well, we were wrong about that, or we were right about that, or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm really liking that aspect of this, so.
And it is serving as a neat side-by-side with where we're at now, because where we're at now is with David.
Right.
And, well, David's son Solomon now.
Yeah.
In our weekly and daily podcast, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
But
so this is bringing up some of the old promises and some of the old things that are still relevant, but maybe like kind of lost in our time frame that we've been doing this thing.
Right.
So.
And this helps tie some of that back up.
Yeah.
That I need things pointed out for me. I don't always get the relevance. I don't always connect the dots.
Right.
So this is really helping with that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other things that I wanted to say.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
So starting on page 100 with the section called Hamor the Hivite.
Hamor the Hivite.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, like, I just reread my notes on this, and my notes do not include anything about Hamor or Hivites.
Okay.
So, sorry, I don't know why that section was called that. I don't recall it at this point. That was 17 pages ago.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
What I did take notes on was just the recap of the story as it stands with Jacob and Leah.
Okay.
And their daughter Dinah was raped by the prince of Shechem.
Right.
And that rapey prince wanted to marry Dinah, but the sons of Jacob would only allow this if all the males of the city would agree to be circumcised.
This was one of my favorite stories back then.
Right.
It was such a great story.
While they were still healing, the sons of Jacob struck at the town to avenge the rape.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was great shit.
It was horrible and wonderful, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a quote here from Asimov that I thought I couldn't phrase it any better, so I just quoted it directly.
Right.
It is not likely that two individual human beings would attack a city. Rather, this is a war of tribes represented by their eponyms.
Okay.
So this gets into that thing that I say every episode, which is these people were not actual persons.
Right.
They are eponyms representing entire tribes of people, which, let me explain that. What more likely happened is that an attack on the city of Shechem, the tribe of Dinah was defeated and utterly destroyed, and then avenged by the tribes of Simon and Levi, who must have suffered greatly.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And this kind of comes back into play a couple times later. Immediately, we see Simon and Levi were among the weakest tribes later.
Okay, yeah.
Because Simon was eventually absorbed by Judah.
Right.
And the Levites never held land, were never warriors, and only served in a priestly function.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Right, right.
Okay, moving on. The next section is Ephrath on page 101, I believe.
Okay.
I accidentally left off part of the digit because I'm a dumbo. So I think it's either 100 or 101.
Got it.
Okay. Jacob bounced after that mess. He was like really upset with his sons for doing that, and he was like, "We got to get out of here."
Right.
And so they had to stop during their travels for Rachel to give birth to Benjamin, which is Jacob's youngest son and the only one born in Canaan.
Got it. Okay.
Rachel,
and wasn't that the only one that was actually Rachel's child?
No, Joseph.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Joseph was his favorite.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Because Joseph was his firstborn by Rachel.
That's
Not
right.
his firstborn, but his firstborn by Rachel, whom he loved.
Right, okay.
And then Benjamin was the last of his children born, also by
Rachel.
Right. And worse, Rachel died giving birth.
Right.
And was buried beside the road to Ephrath.
Yep.
A.k.a. Bethlehem.
Got it.
Okay?
Yep.
So that's just a quick reminder.
Sorry, I'm just trying to remember, like, you know.
No, you're fine. I mean, I didn't remember a lot of this, so that's why it's helpful that we're going back through this in a different perspective kind of way.
Right, yeah.
So the next section is Bilhah, which that was the other concubine.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the servants.
Right.
That section starts on page 102.
Okay.
And Reuben, the oldest son, and he's the name I was trying to remember before, in one of our other episodes that was actually one of our daily readings of where we're at.
Yeah.
So not in a previous book one.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Reuben, who was Jacob's oldest, boinked Jacob's concubine Bilhah.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And that's going to come back to bite him too.
Right.
Okay. What probably actually really happened, though, is that the tribe of Reuben attempted to seal its position as leader, quote unquote, firstborn.
Yep.
He was the firstborn by Leah, I think, or maybe one of the other. Whoever the other maid was.
Oh.
Zippa or some shit like that. Zipper is how I remember.
Yeah, sure, okay.
But anyway, he got spanked. And so Reuben played a minor role thereafter.
Yeah.
And didn't survive long.
Got
so
it.
that is likely what happened.
Got it.
Okay, because never forget, these are not individual persons.
Right, they're tribes.
They're stories describing
larger events.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Next section is Amalek, page 102.
Okay.
Isaac dies at the age of 180.
Okay.
Highly unlikely.
Right.
And Amalek, one of Esau's descendants, and Esau, remember, was the son of Isaac.
Yep.
And is the eponym of the Amalekites.
Okay.
And is the last of the eponyms of the non-Israelite nations.
Okay. Yep.
So I just thought that was interesting to take note of. Okay. Next section is Seir the Horite, page 103.
Okay.
And I'm going to read you exactly what I wrote in my notes because it made me laugh.
Okay.
Hivite, Horite, Hittite, whatever. Because they're basically all interchangeable.
Oh, okay.
They're used in different places, but
they're all essentially the same thing.
Their confusion is caused by the intermingling of the Edomite invaders with cultures already dwelling in that land.
Got it.
So sometimes they're referred to as one, sometimes
so
the
there
other.
There are distinctions, but they're very close in what
we wouldn't know what those distinctions are.
Right. Okay.
They barely knew what they were.
Got it.
So, that's why Hivite, Horite, Hittite, whatever.
Right. I gotcha.
Okay. Next section is Bela and Jobab on page 105.
Okay.
The Edomite Kingship, interestingly enough, was not hereditary. Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first two kings listed are Bela and Jobab. And then there was a couple of interesting notes there. Bela, son of Beor, made some scholars wonder, wait, did they mean Balaam, son of Beor? Like
No.
Balaam of the talking ass?
Really?
Like, what? And then they were like, nah, probably not. Or at least Asimov was like,
yeah.
Very unlikely.
Right?
But then Jobab is like, wait, did they mean Job? Like the book of Job?
Right.
And then Asimov to that question says, maybe. Compare this chapter of Genesis to the book of Job.
Interesting.
And so he made some different comparisons there. We haven't read Job yet, though.
Sure.
So I didn't want to really
delve into it too much.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of keep that in mind when we get there.
Right. So we can kind of analyze that a little bit.
Yeah. Go back and maybe take a look.
Right. Yeah.
So note to self.
Right. Right.
Jobab, Job.
Right.
Okay.
Got it.
Next section is Potiphar, page 105.
Okay.
So Jacob's favorite son was Joseph, remember?
Yeah, of course.
And he was born of his wife, Sarah.
Right.
Oh, I thought her name was Rachel.
I did too.
Yeah, I guess
Sarah, so.
No, it's Rachel. I just fucked up.
Oh.
Wait, what's
okay, are you sure?
No. Wait.
Wait, who are we talking? We're talking about Jacob, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was Rachel. Why did I write Sarah? I think I fucked that up. So, but anyway, Jacob's son Joseph, he was the favorite, and he was a spoiled tattletale brat.
Okay.
Because he was the favorite, And his brothers wanted to kill him because, he was a brat.
Yeah.
But the two oldest siblings nixed that idea. And apparently there were two separate stories that were combined into one. And these stories were Reuben, the oldest brother, was the northern tradition. And Judah, the next oldest, was from the southern tradition.
Okay.
Because remember, Israel and Judah split.
Right.
And so there were kind of two stories of how of how murdering Joseph got nixed.
Got it.
And so it would depend on who you asked as to which tradition is the correct way that happened.
Got it. Okay.
The brothers sold Joseph to passing nomads, from which he is carried to Egypt and purchased by Potiphar.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
Okay. And Potiphar, interestingly enough, means he whom Ra gave. So it's more of a power name than it's a title, not an actual name of the person.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, next section is Pharaz and Zarah, page 106.
Okay.
Okay. So Judah, which was one of the sons of Jacob,
Yep.
he slept with Tamar, a woman who had originally been married to two of his sons. So,
Interesting.
So there's this guy named Judah,
Yeah.
and he has some sons, and both of them were married to this Tamar chick at different times.
Okay.
And then Judah slept with her.
Wow, that's
gross,
I
right?
think I kind of remember that. That was messed up.
That comes back to bite him in the ass.
Yeah.
And each of them had died young and childless. Okay?
Okay.
So that's after that happened, he took her as his wife and boinked her.
Gotcha.
Except I don't know if he really married her or not, but
right.
Anyway, twins were born to Judah.
Okay.
Okay. Zarah or Zarah,
Uh-huh.
depending on which interpretation
Okay.
you're reading, stuck his hand out first. So he was like almost the firstborn, but then wasn't because he pulled back.
Got it.
So technically, Pharaz or Perez, again, depending on the interpretation, was born first.
Okay.
Technically.
Got it.
Okay. The twins are actually eponyms of the two chief clans of the tribe of Judah.
Okay.
So the one tribe is, for Zarah, the Zarthites or the Zerahites.
Gotcha.
Depending on if you're saying Zarah or...
And they only briefly, like, in the Bible, they don't touch on the clans as much. There was, like, one book where they kind of got into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as big of a deal.
Well, and I had no idea that these are eponyms of...
Right.
Like
no,
that,
that's not how it reads, right?
Right, exactly. Like, I thought they're telling the story of individual persons.
Right.
Not tribes of people.
Right.
And that they made up stories
But
to remember the history.
But it does make sense because it was an oral history that they would make it a simplified personal story.
Exactly.
To hand down as opposed to all
No,
the,
yeah, it totally makes sense after knowing that.
Right.
Like,
right.
oh, duh.
Yep.
But I could never have known that without reading outside the Bible.
Yeah.
So anyway, the one tribe was the Zarthites or the Zerahites, and the other one was the Pharzites or the Perizzites. And FYI, David, and therefore all the subsequent Judean kings were Perizzites.
Okay.
Okay?
Gotcha.
Not parasites.
Right.
Okay, next section. Pharaoh of Joseph, because
yes.
we're going to get into a different Pharaoh of somebody else.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Page 107. And I wrote, anyways, back to Joseph. Sometimes my notes crack me up, so I just like to share them because I'm funny to myself.
Yes.
So Joseph is cast into prison because he wouldn't boink Potiphar's wife, so she falsely Me Too'd him.
Right.
You know,
I remember
accused
that.
him of rape because
yeah.
she's a bitch.
Right.
Right. And I think we said at the time that if you guys have not seen the movie, it's a musical, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, y'all are missing out.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Right.
And it tells this whole story in a really good way.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
As I recall, once he's in jail, he starts prophesizing, right?
He had been interpreting dreams before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what caused, one of the things that caused his brothers to want to kill him and then sell him instead.
But had he been prophesizing for Potiphar? I couldn't remember. I can't remember if he was or not.
He's not there yet.
Okay.
No. He had not been.
So as far as Egypt is concerned, they don't know that he's prophesizing yet. Correct?
I don't think so. He might have been. It doesn't really say if he was doing that or not.
Got it.
But he had been doing that before in his own life.
Right.
I just don't know if once he got sold into slavery, if he was doing it.
Okay.
So, he like with his brothers had a dream that he prophesized that, hey, guess what? I had this dream that y'all are going to bow to me someday. And they were like, fuck that.
But it happens. So,
right.
Fuck
but
them.
That's why they sold him.
Right.
Because they were like, fuck you. We're tired of your shit.
Right.
So, he interprets dreams while he's in jail, as one does.
Right.
That happens to me every time I go to jail.
Yeah.
So Pharaoh's previously jailed butler brought Joseph to Pharaoh's attention.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Prosperity will be followed by famine, so plan accordingly is basically, what the dream got interpreted to be.
Right.
And just like that, which I'm giving you a call to Sex and the City.
Oh.
She always says, and just like that.
Got it.
Joseph went from jail to prime motherfucking minister of Egypt.
Yeah, he did.
Nice.
I was like, that was a fast ascension.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said him just like that.
Right.
Because it worked.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Egyptians were isolated and thus xenophobic. So why was Pharaoh being so cool toward a gasp Hebrew slave / Asian foreigner?
Yeah.
Right? That makes no sense, right? I mean, I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, it makes no sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I'm with you here.
Okay. Once again, the writers of Genesis missed an entire period of history.
Oh.
During which time Egypt was invaded by Asian forces.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, like, the Pharaoh might have even been...
I'm getting there.
Okay. All
Yep.
right.
So, Hyksos means foreign kings.
Okay.
And there was a whole period of them in Egypt during which they ruled.
Interesting.
Yeah. Beginning in 1730 BCE, there was little to no political boundary between Egypt and Canaan.
Wow.
So the same power ruled over both.
Interesting. That's really cool.
This pharaoh was likely a Hyksos ruler.
Okay.
Who found in Joseph a fellow Semite, which would make it only natural to place Egyptians under a Semitic leader.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Like, oh my.
Right.
That makes things make a little more sense.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it, like, impacts the story one way or the other, but it just makes it, oh, okay. Cool,
well, I have
cool,
a question. Are they still, like, so these are still representations of tribes, though, right? Or not? Like, is this an actual story of a supposed person, or is this a representation of a tribe?
That I don't know.
Okay. Because that's where I get confused with the liking them to tribes versus liking them to people, because this seems very specifically a personal story. Like, it's one of the first ones in the Bible, right? Like,
yeah.
It's very personal. It's very...
I think it's probably a combination of both.
Okay.
Because the ones that came before, they were all eponyms.
Right.
Right? And now we're getting into some, like you said, very specific events happening where this Hyksos ruler is very likely granting power to some other Semitic person.
A specific person.
Right.
Right.
And so I think maybe it's a bit of both.
Okay.
Or even a bit of rewriting to make it be both.
Sure.
I don't know.
Maybe the Bible is written conveniently to go whatever way they want it to go.
Kind of like Trump recently endorsed, I forget what state it was, he endorsed a guy named Eric. And there were 3 Erics running. And so one of them had dropped out, but the other 2 both claimed that he was endorsing them.
Yeah. Everybody
understood that he wasn't ever endorsing his son, Eric.
Right. Yeah.
But now he's able to say, whichever one wins, that's the one I meant.
Speaking of Trump, I just have to say it because it was like one of my favorite things I've seen in a while. I shared a picture with you the other day.
Yes.
And it was of Trump he had his hand on Josh Hawley's shoulder.
Yes.
And it says, live shot of Trump grabbing a pussy. I thought it was the best fucking thing ever. I'm like, this is amazing.
It only makes sense if you understand the reference of Josh Hawley
running
away during the January 6th insurrection.
Yeah.
Which that shot came out during the January 6th hearings.
Right.
So,
and if you understand the grabbing him by the pussy reference that Trump did.
Yeah. So it takes a little bit of understanding a lot of what's been going on. That's a good one.
I had to share that because that was such a great picture.
That was
like,
awesome.
that was amazing.
I really liked that.
Yeah.
Okay, next section, the river. And then Asimov has in parentheses, Nile.
Okay.
Page 110. So the Greek historian Herodotus.
Okay.
And a famous phrase called, let me start over. I'm getting myself. Okay. So the Greek historian Herodotus was a famous, historian, whatever.
Sure.
There was a famous phrase that he used in his works.
Okay.
Which called Egypt the gift of the Nile.
Oh, okay.
Instead of like vice versa, like you would think that it would be Egypt. Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, anyway, so Egypt was the gift of the Nile, okay?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Just leave it there.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm having a hard time, like, reading my notes sometimes,
It's
and then I'm like, what did I mean there? So, just leave it.
Okay, we're going to leave it.
Just leave it. Okay, anyway, the Nile is the longest river in the world.
Yes.
Yes.
True.
We all know that. Okay, the Nile flood is derived from the annual rains that fall not in Egypt,
Okay.
but in East Central Africa far upstream.
Got it.
Huh. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for that section.
Okay.
The next one is
It
called...
never. I always forget that water runs towards the equator.
Mm-hmm.
So like whenever I'm looking at a map, I always think the Nile runs down. But then like you're like East Central Africa, and I'm like, oh yeah, it goes that way. Because I forgot those rivers run up.
Do they really?
They
I
do.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
And also toilet bowls spin the other way. You know. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
everything goes. Yeah.
Oh wow! I just learned a thing right now. Like on this podcast, you literally just heard my brain pop as the light bulb went on. Interesting. Okay, the next section is called "On," like turn on your brain.
Okay.
On page 112.
Got it.
Joseph married Potiphar's daughter, Asenath, which I think is a fucking awesome name.
Yeah.
And I don't recall reading that.
I don't either.
But it happened.
I didn't even know that he had married.
Daughter.
Yeah, I didn't. Okay.
Okay.
I'll take that as true. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, true insofar as the Bible said so.
Right. Well, Asimov told us it, so it can't be wrong. On is also another word for Anu. A-N-U. Anu.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that city was of great religious importance, where they worshiped the Egyptian sun god Ra.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And I'm going somewhere with this, so try to follow me, even though I'm not really trustworthy. So the Egyptians called that religious center Pa-Ra, or House of Ra.
Okay.
The Hebrew Beth Shemesh called it the House of the Sun.
Okay.
And the Greeks renamed it Heliopolis, which is City of the Sun. And that's current day Cairo.
Ah, okay. Got it.
So, this is like totally off topic, but there's these really tall obelisks, two of them called Cleopatra's Needles.
Okay.
And they were taken out of Heliopolis, where they stood in Alexandria for almost 2 millennia.
Wow.
Before being moved and re-erected, one in London and one in New York's Central Park.
Really?
And they are still
there to this day?
Yes.
For
For real. For real.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Like, I was like, get the fuck out. And so I looked them up.
There's got to be a story behind why they were there.
They were gifted by various people. I think the one in London was gifted to pay off a debt, like a monetary debt.
Got it.
And the one in New York was gifted, I forget why, it was some like political
Congratulations
thing.
on being a country.
No, I don't think it was that. I think it was just like some political move.
Okay.
Like you give somebody, like, you throw paper towels at some people, and other people
like
you give an
putting
obelisk.
a thousands-year-old monument in Central Park is a bad idea.
Right? Yeah.
I'm just saying,
like it's got to be like close to ruin by now, right?
You would think, like,
but I think most people don't realize what it is.
probably not.
And
there's like, oh yeah, that thing.
I've just
Whatever.
added that to my list of things I must see before I die.
No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean,
Next time we go
thousands
to
of
New
years
York.
old things. That's really interesting.
Cleopatra's Needles.
Right, and
Okay.
and it's in the United States. Like, how many thousands of year old things can you see in the United States? Right,
that you could just walk up to and be like, "Sup."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had to stop reading for a minute and be like, "Hang on a sec, what?"
That's one of the reasons I want to visit other countries, because we're such a new country. Mm-hmm. Everything here is just so fucking new.
Like, that's why whenever I was studying history, because as a kid I grew up overseas, and then as a child in the States, like I moved around. I never like felt any kind of connection with the States.
Yeah.
And so history class was always really stupid and boring, because I'm like, who the fuck does the U.S. think they are? Why do I have to, like, that? They've only been around a couple hundred years. Who gives a shit about
Well, and
them?
you know me, I grew up here in the same place my whole life, basically. Mm-hmm. And I have a deep understanding of what local history is and United States history, and it means a lot to me. So
which I can't relate
we grew up with
to
from
at all.
two different like perspectives. Now I also like to relate to the world history of things too. So I very much appreciate how everything brought us to the point that we're at. So I'm rambling here. I'm not really just, but
For myself, like, I never thought I liked history until I got into college, and I took a history class that was about other cultures.
Right.
And it was a humanities class that actually concentrated on, like, music and architecture and art from as influenced by historical events around the world, and the United States wasn't even hardly mentioned. And I was like, oh my God, this history class was written for me.
Yeah, even just in human history, we're a blip on the freaking radar.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, it's what it is, but...
Yeah. So, I don't know. This is interesting stuff to me, but I really want to go see Cleopatra's Needles.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Both of them.
We should do it.
But definitely the one in New York. There's no reason not to.
Right. Agreed.
Okay, so next section is Goshen, page 113. And I'm not going to lie, when I first read that, I was thinking Goku, which is an anime. And I don't know why, but it just sounds like an anime.
Yeah, see, when you said it, I was thinking Goshen, Indiana.
Oh.
Because it's nearby, so.
Goshen?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. So that was what first crossed my mind. But
Indiana just passed the U.S.'s first almost near complete no abortions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's what I'm thinking of.
In no way whatsoever.
Right. That's what I'm thinking of when I hear Indiana.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Fuck you, Indiana.
That's also where Pence came from, so it's not got a lot of things going for it.
Right. Fuck Pence.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't care that he didn't do the Trump insurrection thing.
Yeah.
I don't care that was his final
line. That's
line.
the only thing that keeps him from being, like, complete hatred, right? Essentially.
Whatever, I still hate him.
That he stood up that last minute and said, okay, we're not going to completely ruin the United States.
But he helped get us here. So fuck him.
Yeah.
Okay, so Goshen, page 113. So Jacob and his wife Asenath had 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay. And Egypt prospered.
Yeah.
It prospered.
Yep.
So when famine struck, they were ready. Yay. Okay. But Canaan suffered, obviously. They did not have the memo.
Right.
So they didn't prep.
Yeah.
So Jacob's sons had to go to Egypt to buy grain because they were like, oh my God, we're all starving to death.
Right.
And Joseph pretended to be rough with them just to see if they changed.
Sure.
Because from his perspective, he was like, you guys didn't mind hurting me knowing that it was going to hurt Dad.
Right.
And that's fucked up. Like, you put your own feelings first, even knowing it would hurt Dad. So I'm going to see if you guys are still like that by taking his other favorite son, the youngest, Benjamin, and making you guys, have to give him up.
Right.
And seeing if you will at all let that happen. Which we know the brothers would not give up Benjamin. And so... they showed that they had truly changed because they were like, no, take me as slave in his place, and please, this would hurt our father so much. Bah! So Joseph revealed himself as being alive and well, and the brothers were invited to live in Egypt, and the Pharaoh welcomed them, which is amazing.
Right. And
the family moved to the land of Goshen in Egypt.
Got it.
Okay?
Yep.
Yay, they all lived happily ever after the end, right?
Sure.
So the next chapter is the last, or the next section is the last one in Asimov's Guide to the Bible, the book of Genesis.
Right.
Called Ephraim and Manasseh, page 114.
Okay.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So this is so interesting to me, this final section.
Yeah.
So Jacob blessed Joseph's sons as his own on his deathbed. Right. Which we kind of remember. I remember that happening, but I also remember, like, what does that mean? Like,
wasn't that the one with the right hand and the left hand, and he crossed them and stuff? And
But I remember us going, like, so he just was like, oh, you're my sons now. And we were like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was weird.
It was, but it wasn't.
Okay.
Because when he took them on his deathbed, that is part of what created the 12...
tribes.
The 12 tribes
Got it.
of Israel.
Okay.
So we've got Reuben, Simon, Judah, and Dan, Gad, Issachar, Zebulon, and Asher, Naphtali, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh.
Got it.
Oh, and don't forget Levi, except for fooled you, because that would be 13, not 12. But Levi never amounted to much beyond becoming a landless priestly caste, so they don't count. Womp womp.
Got it. So we are still talking in, like, essentially the whole book of talking about where Joseph was talked about. Mm-hmm. That was still references to them as tribes, I'm assuming.
I think so.
In a way, like, you know, I mean, maybe Joseph was a tribe that had power in Egypt of some type. You know what I mean? Like, that's maybe more likely what the case might have been.
Right.
And, yeah, I don't know. And then they came to some sort of a treaty when they came back to, who knows? But, yeah, it sounds like because they're treating them as tribes here, where they're bringing them back into the loop. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, and that's why I said I think that it was probably a bit of both.
Got it.
You know?
Yeah.
But regardless, Joseph, because his sons were named as Jacob's sons.
Yeah.
In essence, he got two tribes. So a lot of times, Ephraim and Manasseh were referred to as Joseph's tribes.
Got it.
Or the Josephian tribes, or whatever.
Sure.
Even though they were his sons.
Yep.
And so, thus, these children, Jacob's grandsons, received the birthright ahead of Reuben, the oldest brother.
Got it. Okay.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, you know what? I apologize. I have one more interesting little section.
Okay.
I forgot about. Sorry. Okay. So the last section for realsies is called Judah, and it's on page 116.
Okay.
Okay. And so Reuben was dismissed. He was the oldest, right? But he was dismissed for his seduction of Bilhah. Remember, we talked about that?
Yep.
And so this is Jacob, like, going on and doing his, like, blessing on his deathbed thing.
Yep.
Okay? So he's like, Reuben, you suck.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then he gets to Simon along with Levi, and they were dismissed because of their raid on Shechem after Dinah's rape.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So you guys suck, you're out.
Yep.
Okay? Judah, he enthusiastically praised. And David, who descends from Judah, establishes the peace and stability of Israel.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yep.
And it was the people who were the priests who were putting this together, like, went back and were like, and Judah, he enthusiastically praised because, because Judah's tribe turned out well.
Yeah, right.
Right?
They're very, very centrally important in the Bible story. Mm-hmm.
So the rest were mostly noted favorably. And I'm not going to name those off, but Joseph's tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, are praised exuberantly and at length.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that they didn't necessarily amount to much.
Right.
But the stories were compiled at the time when they were doing well.
It. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Oopsies.
History pulled out. That didn't work out so well.
Yeah, you're wrong. You didn't prophecy very well.
Right.
So that's funny.
Yeah.
Jacob died at age 147.
Nope.
But you recall the last person that I said died
was 180.
Was 180.
Yeah.
So you see how we're doing that.
We're moving down closer to that realistic time frame.
Yes. And he was brought back to Canaan to be buried in the cave of Machpelah with his grandparents Abraham and Sarah.
Right.
Oh, see, that's where I got the Sarah from.
Yeah.
Abraham and Sarah.
Right.
Yeah, I knew Jacob's wife was Rachel.
I looked it up after you said that.
Okay.
You were still going on about stuff, so I just let it slide. But yeah, it was Rachel.
Yeah. See, I wrote it wrong, but I said it correct.
Right.
Yes. My brain works sometimes. So anyways, he went back to the cave of Machpelah where his grandparents Abraham and Sarah were buried, along with his parents Isaac and Rebekah, and one of his wives Leah.
Got it.
Now Rachel wasn't buried in that cave because remember she died on the side.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
she was buried along
giving birth to Benjamin.
Yeah. And then Joseph died about 50 years later at age 110.
Got it. Now we're down in a realistic time frame now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See how they did that? They just moved right down that scale there. Like, now we're gonna die at regular ages now.
Yep.
Sounds regular-ish ages.
Right. So, when we go into Exodus next Saturday, or Sunday, next Sunday,
right?
That picks up 400 years after this,
right?
So I don't know if you recall that, but at that point, like that's when Egypt forgot that Joseph and all of his people there are awesome or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
they had to leave.
They're enslaved.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But when we start the book of Exodus, that starts on page 118 and goes through page 153.
Okay.
And the sections that we'll be covering are Exodus, Ephraim, Pharaoh of the oppression.
Okay.
Pithom and Ramses, the daughter of Pharaoh, Moses, Midian, Pharaoh of the Exodus, Horeb, Jehovah, Aaron, just kidding, Aaron, the magicians of Egypt, which I was like, what?
Yeah.
Passover, Abib, the Red Sea, Pi-hahiroth, Omer, Amalek, Joshua, Cherubim, the Urim and the Thummim, and the molten calf.
Awesome.
Okay.
You know, I have to say one thing.
What's that?
Passover, I never, like, that was, when we read about Passover, I was like, Jesus, that is some fucked up shit. Mm-hmm. Like, Passover is some fucked up shit.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I'm like, you know, it's just this innocuous, like
we celebrated today,
holiday
whatever
thing that we quote unquote celebrate or whatever.
We know about it. We
know about it. Yeah, I've never.
Name.
Have you ever celebrated Passover?
I have, not myself, but my parents did and do, and I knew about it.
I knew that it existed. I never knew that anybody ever celebrated it, but like it happens. And then when I found out like what it was,
right,
I was aghast. I'm like, this is fucking horrible, guys.
Right, like why?
Jesus,
why are we?
And if you don't remember, just wait until we talk about this again next week, because Passover is fucking trash.
Well, I don't know that we'll get to it next week. It'll be in the weeks to come.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it looks like it's far down the list.
Wait till we get to Passover sometime in the near-ish future.
One of these Sundays coming up there.
Yeah, because Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Fuck Passover.
Fuck Passover.
Yeah, right?
It's disgusting.
Yeah. All right. Well, is that all we got for today?
That's all we got for today's Sacrilegious Book Club.
All right. Let's wrap this up. And don't forget, we also have our weekly replay today, if that's your thing, which you're probably not listening to the single episode if you listen to the replay. So I don't know why I even said that. But whatever. Anyway.
On Monday, we will be back with 1 Kings chapter 6.
Yeah, that. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep, we have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.